What happens when you take a doctor out of venture capitalism? Keep listening to find out. Welcome to the Money Meets Medicine podcast, where we talk all about the personal finance topics you wish you had learned in medical school. I'm your host, Dr. Jimmy Turner, and here's our guest host who never trumps his partner's ace, Mike Kittner.
Oh, that's right. Never trump your partner's ace.
Yeah, so for those that don't know what that means, Mike, several years back, introduced me to euchre, family pastime for you, Mike.
That's
right. And so we played all the time. We go on date nights. We, went to St. Lucia for our 10-year anniversary for our two respective marriages, played a ton of euchre there. So Mike has a rule that you never trump your partner's ace. I still don't know what it means, though.
Yeah, so it's just one of those cardinal rules that you have to abide by when you play euchre. Growing up, playing it with my parents, my grandparents, if you ever trumped your partner's ace, you were in for a long night. And for your listeners out there too, when it's a couples game. So Jimmy's wife and I, we're always partners. I can't be a partner with my wife because we'll end up getting divorced before the end of the game. But Kristen always she always plays an ace or trumps my ace every time we play the game. And she's so flamboyant about it. Like she puts it down, like, look at what I'm doing. And we're just like that meme where you just put your head in your hands and you're like, no.
What are you doing? Yeah.
And she always says, oh, can I take that one back?
Yeah. Chris is pretty bad about it. And at this point, we're like, no, you've played like 800 games of euchre. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But, well, hey, I'm super excited about this show because, on the show, we're going to discuss some actually really big changes on Money Meets Medicine and how all of you that are listening or watching this on YouTube can benefit. So you can kind of consider this show our New Year's gift to you, including some free access to the brand new second edition of my book. We'll talk about that later. If you stick around till the end, we'll tell you how to get it. And Mike, you have joined us earlier in an episode in November on disability insurance. And hilariously, despite that being like a pretty dry topic, not one that people are like raving to listen to, I've gotten really good feedback from people that was actually an excellent show. So apparently people like me making fun of you. So kudos to you.
Yeah. Well, I think they also enjoy me making fun of you too, as the host of your podcast. Yeah.
I mean, it's only fair. Since we're best friends, it makes it pretty easy. We know all the trade secrets, it turns out. But then, a bunch of doctors actually started reaching out to you after that show and, you helped them with getting on occupation disability insurance. We talk about some of the pearls and pitfalls on that show back in November, if you missed it. And, you just started doing some pretty awesome stuff. You saved some docs who were, going to get denied disability insurance when other agents were basically going to, have them fully underwritten, but they had very bad medical problems. You found less expensive options that other agents didn't provide to doctors that are in training, residents, fellows, that can often not afford disability. I mean, you and I remember being there. Those are, pretty expensive payments.
Absolutely. It's sticker shock sometimes when you see those things.
Yep. And so, to be honest, I'm pretty sure people like you, maybe a lot more than me. And if I'm being honest, I actually like you more than I like me too. So, if people are trying to reach out, right, there's a question now of where to do that. And the reason why is because many of you have been asking, how to get a hold of Mike since there's been some changes very clearly on the show. We took a pause for a little while and, there was things going on in the background that we couldn't publicly discuss. And at this point, kind of like LeBron James, he's like, leaving the Cavaliers and they had like that big show on ESPN, like the reveal. And he's like, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. Mike and I are, well, actually, we're not going to South Beach, but Mike, do you want to tell them where we're going or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, so we've got some big changes. I've been brought over to Money Meets Medicine to spearhead the disability insurance division of moneymeetsmedicine.com now. And it's exciting, and what an exciting opportunity this is to continue what we've been doing for the last 6 months, continuing with the same North Star, doing what's right for the clients. And I'm excited about the opportunity. This is going to be great for your listeners.
Yeah, and as many of you know, I've been part of co-founding a venture capital-backed startup called Attend. You've heard that name a lot on prior episodes. And Mike, you were there too. Actually, we brought you in. Used to be an educator. Right?
That's right.
Married to a doc. So hilariously, that game of euchre, it used to be like the teachers versus the doctors because Mike's wife is a doctor.
Oh, it was.
I'm a
right.
doctor. And then Mike abandoned his educational career to serve doctors with own occupation disability insurance. But, it's truly, honestly, looking back, Mike, I thought it was a really great experience, learned a ton from it. And, I think both of us had a pretty good experience in the last 6 to 10 months.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, the time there, the unpredictability, the risk, the speed that everything moved, during that time was a great learning experience. And, just also recognizing the need that your listeners have, not only for the educational aspect of Money Meets Medicine, but, they need to protect that future income, and they need someone that they can trust. And, we have a great foundation of doing what's right by the client. And we're going to continue providing that for your listeners.
Yeah. And so for those that are kind of wondering what was happening in the background, really, if you look at the venture capital market for the past, 6 to 12 months, it's been one of the toughest in recent memories to raise money. And if you don't understand venture capitalism, we'll talk about that today on the show. But raising money is a little bit like putting the gas in the car to get to where you're going. The car being the startup, it has to have gas to keep on going. And let's just say without it, you can't keep going. The car just kind of stalls and shuts down. And after a long, hard fight, it's time to pivot, to make a change. And which is why Mike and I decided to take our talents to moneymeetsmedicine.com, which is actually now where you can reach Mike. So Mike, what is your new email address? So if people are looking, they're like, hey, I want to talk to that guy, but I can't find him.
Yeah. So we're at michael@moneymeetsmedicine.com. Feel free to email me. Just reach out, contact me, say hi. Really exciting opportunity that we've got for everybody.
He might even teach you how to play euchre.
That's a possibility.
So, it's good to continue that same journey. And, the show is given, everything that's happened on this show. I thought I'd share a little bit about our transition, Mike, and, my journey through venture capitalism, because one of the questions that I get most often on the show is how doctors can earn non-clinical money outside of medicine. And, there's lots of ways to do that, right? From picking up locum shifts and using your medical degree to do that, but more specifically outside of medicine, things like biotech and pharma and advisory roles and venture capitalism and real estate, right? And so as that topic comes up all of the time, I figured we talk about exactly what venture capitalism is, how doctors can kind of get their foot in the door, and, some transferable skill sets, that sort of thing. And before I do, I do want to make some, announcements about kind of some really awesome things that we have coming up. So you might be watching this actually on the Money Meets Medicine YouTube channel. It's going to be one of the first episodes that gets put on there, and you can expect to have kind of early releases of the podcast episodes on the YouTube channel. We're also going to be doing some financial literacy lectures. I'll probably start doing those on Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m. But either way, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you're, able to follow that there and get all the amazing content that we're putting out. And you can also see my ugly mug and make fun of me if you want about my crooked nose, because I do, in fact, have a crooked nose. No, now everyone's going to watch this channel and be like, I just can't not see it anymore. But it is a thing. And we're also going to be pivoting and having some different hosts on the show. So Mike's you're going to be joining us for, probably a few episodes in 2024, talking about disability insurance and balancing life as, a physician spouse. Yep. And, I'm super excited about those episodes. And then we're going to be bringing on Justin Harvey, who is a certified financial planner. And so in very real ways, Money Meets Medicine 2.0 is kind of here, because what made it special in the beginning was having a host with me that was a financial planner, could bring that perspective. And so Dr. Taylor has graduated from training. She is off doing her own thing. We're going to bring her back as well, just to let everybody know where they can find her once, she's up and going and has her thing set up. And so don't worry, we'll bring Leisha back for those that are huge Leisha Taylor fans, and let you know everything that's going on there. But on this show, Mike, let's talk about venture capitalism, right? So, for me, and I think probably for you too, this was a completely unknown world, right? This was a world where, like, I would hear venture capitalism, and as someone who, likes investing and, enjoys reading about it, I would hear venture capitalism, and the only thing that I would hear is risky investment.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I think a lot of people listening, they're like, wait, hold on. This isn't like a low cost diversified index fund. Like, what is venture capitalism? And so there's two different ways to think about it, right? One is actually working in venture capitalism, which is what you and I did, Mike, right?
Yeah.
The other is investing in venture capitalism. And so we're going to talk about the former, although the latter is definitely available to people that want to invest in it. And I'm going to be honest, at some point when I, have enough of my wealth built up, I'm probably going to take 5 or 10% of my portfolio and invest in VC companies, because they're super passionate, crazy entrepreneurs that are trying to solve problems and, like, cure cancer. I mean, like, it's just a really infectious, contagious place to be when you're around people that are really trying to solve problems in a really interesting way. But for now, I'm still keeping to the low cost diversified index fund strategy. So let's talk about the former, right? So venture capitalism and, kind of that role of working inside of it. Right. So kind of two routes in, right, Mike? So like if you and I came up with an idea,
Right.
the typical traditional way to get into venture capitalism is for you and I to be like, hey, we're going to co-found this company. Mike and I created, company ABC, and we're going to take company ABC and we're going to go to a VC firm like Shark Tank and say, hey, we want you to buy 10% of our company. We currently own 100. And for the 10%, we want you to give us $100,000. Right. And so we're saying we think that the company is valued at $1 million, right? 10% of $1 million is $100,000. That's what we're asking for. And then we might give them 10%, and then you and I split 45-45, right? That's like the traditional founders model.
Got it.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then there's another model, which is an incubation. And an incubation, basically what happens is, the VC firm itself starts with the idea. So some famous ones here are, Y Combinator's a really well-known one. And in the incubations, the VC firm comes up with the ideas. They might come to you and me, Mike, and be like, hey, I heard you provide awesome services to doctors in the personal finance space. Would you mind helping us, form this company and come in as a co-founder? And in that situation, you're going to own less equity because it wasn't your idea.
Oh, yeah.
But you're going to come in and they're going to provide resources and that funding from the get-go. You're not going to have to pitch somebody from the very beginning in order to get funding. They're going to help provide that support, that foundation. And so Mike, when you and I came in, it was as an incubation, right? That's what we did in the last 12 months is we came into an incubator that had started a foundation and got us going. So, pros and cons to that, Mike, like, what do you think, when I'm telling you about those two different ways to get into VC, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I think they both provide value. A lot of times, people have an end game of where they want to get, but they can't get there themselves. They need to bring on a team. And, that's kind of where we were with Attend. Like we knew what doctors needed through, the social media platforms that you've had. We know there's a need for physicians in personal finance, just a need for, what's investing look like? Where do I get started on that? Why do I need true own occupation disability insurance? How do I balance work life, with a spouse and with kids? Like there's a dramatic need to provide that information. And, you and I, we've been there.
Yep.
So we were brought on to Attend to kind of, fill that niche, if you will, and give that content to, all of the clients who were interested in learning about those aspects.
Yeah. And there's interesting, kind of, features and drawbacks when it comes to this stuff, right? So, as a traditional founder, right, you're bringing in the idea, but like you kind of have to have some proof of concept walking in. Like you already have had to lay some groundwork, probably put in a little bit of work to prove your idea before you go pitch it to somebody, right? Like you can't just walk in and be like, hey, I want money. Right? That is not how that works. Whereas an incubator, you have the help from the get-go, but you own less equity. Right. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. Neither's right. Neither's wrong. It's kind of chocolate and vanilla. And to be honest with you, it is, there are benefits to both and drawbacks to both. But if you're wondering, okay, so how do I get into the VC space as a doc, right? Really kind of two ways. One is to found, one is to incubate. And then the other one is to basically, I guess a third way is to become an advisor. Right. So I might be like, hey, I'm building this own occupation disability insurance company. So, hey, Mike, I know you've got experience with that. You're married to a physician, so you're the perfect person to help us out. So I'm going to have you come in and give us advice on how we should create this company, how we should run it. And for that, we're going to give you some, small percentage of equity and might expect you to answer some emails and to come some advisory board meetings every quarter.
Right.
Right. And so that's kind of the third way. So if you're thinking about, hey, how can I get into this space? It sounds pretty awesome. Those are kind of the three ways that you can kind of get into it. Right. And so, Mike, I'm kind of curious from your perspective. You're married to a doc. I'm your best friend. I'm a doc. I hear a lot of doctors. They're like, you know what? I think the only way I can make money is in medicine. I don't think that I have any transferable skills from my career in medicine that would allow me to be successful in something else. When you hear that as someone who's not got the blinders on, the horse where like we just kind of have our own perspective and this is the only thing we're good at, I'm kind of curious from an outside perspective, if you will. Like, do you really think that's true?
A lot of it just depends on the goal of the physician. I'll just speak for my wife, for example. She's medicine all the time. If we need to earn extra income when we were during residency, it was moonlighting or it was picking up extra shifts. It wasn't anything on the side. It was all done through the institution, and that was quite a while ago. And, you and through your listeners now have a vast of opportunities to augment their income that maybe she didn't have when she was a resident. Listening and talking with all the clients that we have on our books right now, many of them are interested in supplementing their income, whether it's through, telehealth, whether it's, just, providing some value on a podcast or a blog or answering questions, that maybe come to them specifically. Maybe it's, being some sort of advisor for some sort of lawsuit happening, at an institution where they can review documents in an unbiased way. There's a lot of opportunity out there. And I've heard a lot of my clients who are, running in that direction to augment their income.
Yeah. And so I think you can kind of break it down into two categories, right? You've got the medical degree, let's say, opportunities where you're going to do locums, you're going to moonlight, you're going to use your medical knowledge for medical malpractice work or chart reviews. And then you've got the non-medical stuff. And I always find this argument interesting because, as someone who coaches docs, it's all about your perspective, right? So when you say like, I just don't have this transferable skill set, I would argue that as a physician, you've learned leadership, you've learned communication, you've learned how to solve complex, problems. You're a complex problem solver, right? And so this idea that you need to, go get additional training, people are like, oh, I need to go get an MBA. I can tell you from experience that that's not true. That lived experience in the business space actually provides probably more of an education than getting an MBA does. And in fact, people have discouraged me multiple times from getting an MBA because they're like, Jimmy, like you've run a business for 6 years, like you know more about business than I do. And
he's talking about me right now, too.
Exactly. Yeah, my huge business knowledge, just massive out the wazoo. Yeah, and so I think it's interesting. But let's say you're listening to the show and you're like, you know what? I've always had this idea in the background. I've always thought about doing this one thing. I think it's, a really good idea. I think it'd make a successful company, but you just don't know if it's something that VC would offer, in terms of funding, right? Like you just got no idea. Well, I can tell you after pitching 70 different venture capital companies in the last, 6 months, there are hilariously very specific questions. And you'll, if you want to look this up, it's called a pitch deck, but there are certain things that are expected in a pitch, that walking in, I had no idea about, right? So like, Mike, if it maybe the first thing is going to be intimidating, but if I told you that your idea had to be worth at least $1 billion. And in my mind, I'm like, I've got like the mini me from like Austin Powers, like with his pinky to his mouth, like, $1 billion, right? But like, when I tell you that, like your idea has to be worth $1 billion, how does that strike you?
I mean, my heart's pounding right now.
Yeah.
How do you validate that? In terms of the evidence to support that, I'd be interested to hear how you responded to questions like that. Cause I've seen Shark Tank. Sarah and I were watching it last night.
Yeah.
And it's intimidating. The questions that are peppered to you about your business, your idea, your startup, wherever your stage is of your business, like go through that kind of like how your process was. What was it like? How were you feeling? Because you're in front of a camera all the time. You're speaking to your listeners, you're providing content, that it's valued, but you take that same skill set into this, virtual pitch for these $1 billion VC firms. I would love to know what's kind of going through your mind at that point.
Yeah. I think whether you're in, let's call it solopreneurship, right? So which is where I was for the first, 4 years, I was basically running a business by myself. Or you have a venture capital idea that's going to scale to the moon, right? In a nutshell, you're doing the same thing. You are taking a pain point and a solution, right? Or I guess I should say point A and point B. This is where you are. This is where you want to be. And the solution to that problem is your business. The question is, how scalable is that idea, right? So if I told you like, hey, I'm going to provide coaching for doctors, right? Because I've run a coaching business before. And, I basically help doctors that, have career transition moments. They don't know if, this current job they're in is going to be something that will last. They're looking at, career number 2 or, job number 2, and they want to make sure they're not making a mistake because many times they've changed jobs and ended up just being as burned out. And so, the solution there is coaching, an outside objective, third-party perspective. Now, could you scale coaching, right, and serve enough people that it'd be worth $1 billion? In order to do that, right, you have to get the human capital out of the way. Like, it's got to be, human light. So you might start thinking about, hey, well, what if we had this app, and this app reached out to people and provided some coaching, through the app without a human involved? And so you start thinking about scale. And that's ultimately the game in venture capitalism. So the question that they ask is like, what is your total addressable market? In other words, what is the market size? And so for disability insurance, right, the market size is actually really interesting. So for a lot of listeners, they probably don't know this, but 80% of the disability insurance market is made up of physicians, or excuse me, I should say 80% of the market, doctors have disability insurance. 80% of doctors have it. 50% of the overall disability insurance market is made of physicians. And that makes sense because we have a very unique skill set. I'm an anesthesiologist. There's not a single part of my body I can lose, right? Or that can become disabled and still do my job. Many medical specialties are that way. And so because of that, doctors realize, I spent 20 something years getting this education. I need to protect it, right? And so you start looking at that addressable market. And Mike, I don't know if you know this number, but the total addressable market, like in terms of market size for physicians and disability insurance, it's over $2 billion.
I mean, yeah, that's true. The numbers don't surprise me. The 80%, I'm hoping the other 20% are financially well off and don't need it.
Yeah.
But you hit the nail on the head. And we talk about this all the time. You have a specialized skill set. You make a lot of money, probably have a lot of debt. You have to protect that income, period.
Yep. No, I agree. I actually had somebody reach out to me on Twitter. I still can't call it X. I just can't do it.
No, Twitter.
Twitter. I'm just going to keep calling it Twitter. Hopefully Elon doesn't listen to the show and sue me. I'm going to get like a cease and desist from like Tesla. So on Twitter, I have people reach out, ask questions all the time. You can always DM me or email me at jimmy@moneymeetsmedicine.com. Happy to answer any questions. Love talking to you guys. But somebody reached out and they're like, hey, I've got this question about disability insurance. Should I get this GSI if I'm completely healthy? And if I need to get disability insurance, why and for how long? And of course I answered the questions. And if you want to listen to the show back in November, that'll also answer some of those questions. But I basically told them, I was like, yeah, so you need it until you're financially independent. So to your point, hopefully the 20% of docs that don't have disability insurance, it is because they are financially independent. They no longer need a paycheck. And if you were in that situation, of course you don't need disability insurance. You don't need to protect an income that you no longer need.
Right. And we talk about that during our consultations,
Yeah.
Most of the time, doctors will not need to carry a disability insurance policy until they're 65 or whatever the benefit period is. At some point, your debt will be paid off, or at least close to being paid off. Your financial resources will be making money on money. And at some point you just, you assume the risk yourself.
Yep.
You'll self-insure. And if something happens, you'll deal with it. But as a young physician with the crushing debt that some of us have, at least we had, my wife and I did when we were going through this, it's just too risky. For pennies on the dollar, you can insure your future income. And, you have to do that given your skill set and your amount of income.
Yeah. The way I always phrase it to people, including this doc on Twitter is basically there's two questions, right? The first question is, how likely is it that I become disabled? Right. The second question is, if I do become disabled, how, financially catastrophic is it? You don't get disability insurance because of the first question. You get it because of the second question, right? Like if it happens, it is financially catastrophic. And so that's the reason to get it. But to go back to, the VC pitch land, your idea has to be worth at least $1 billion. Right. And so if it's not worth $1 billion, in other words, go research the market size. You're like, hey, I've got this great idea. I've looked into this, a bunch, and look into it further. Go Google what is the market size for the problem that you're trying to solve. And if it's not at least $1 billion and you don't think you can get, that piece of the market share, a VC firm is not even going to listen. And the reason why is because in this land, they want to take 10 investments, knowing that 8 or 9 of them will fail and, or, not make enough money and, or not be able to raise. And that the 1 or 2 investments that succeed will be so successful that they'll pay for the other ones and more, right? That's how you get money back as an investor. And so, they are only going to consider ideas that have the potential to become $1 billion ideas, which walking in, I just didn't know that. Yeah. Didn't even cross my mind.
Let me jump in here. So during these pitches, were they more interested in the A and the B, the problem, the solution? Were they more interested in the books and what the revenue was? I mean, what were they looking at?
Yeah. So the biggest problem, or I should say the biggest thing that they're probably interested in is, what is the pain point? What is the solution? How are you solving it? And most importantly, is it something people want? So the term for that in venture capitalism is product market fit. That is the most important thing. So, you can have a great solution, right? You can have this unbelievable idea. You explain it to all of your friends and it sounds amazing, but then you put the product in front of people and they don't want it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Happens all the time. And in fact, it's hilarious because, when you build a product, you get user feedback, right? So, when we were building the disability insurance product, right? We asked people like, hey, how many of you would recommend, disability insurance, this process that, Mike was involved in, right? How many of you would recommend Mike to other people? And, I'll share that answer. It's 100%, by the way, which is incredible. Like, that's called a net promoter score, and a good net promoter score is like 40, and Mike, yours is like 100. So kudos to you for doing the right thing for docs. But
awesome.
Yeah, but the product market fit is, you put the product in front of people. What do they want? And you'll ask users and they'll be like, you know what? This first iteration is pretty good, but this is what I want. And then you'll do that and you'll put it in front of people. And hilariously, people don't want it because people don't know what they want until it's in front of them. And so a venture capital investor is going to be very concerned with, have you proven that people actually want this, that people will actually buy it, that people will actually feel like they're getting service from it, and they will use it, right? What is your, monthly active users? Like, what percentage of people come back and interact with you again? And so the pain point, I think, is the most important part, and proving product market fit. You've not only solved the problem, but people actually want that solution.
Got it.
So, it's a pretty interesting thing. And, another big one, Mike, and this probably makes sense, right? Is what prevents somebody else from like walking in behind you and basically creating the same exact product, right?
Yeah. I mean, unless you have it's patent or something like that, right? I mean,
yeah.
Think about a great example. If I'm going to jump in here with MySpace, a lot of you listeners out there are younger and probably don't know, but there are some out there listening right now, some of my clients that know what MySpace is.
Yeah. Oh, I do.
When Facebook came around, when it was just geared toward college campuses, they took the same kind of platform and just made improvements and made it better. And now, MySpace is gone, and look at Facebook right now. But like you just said, how do you protect what you're building now? Someone can come run right behind you and improve it.
Yeah. And so in the VC world, that's called a moat. It's like, you think about a castle, right? They got the drawbridge and like they got to get across the moat. Like, what prevents them from building the same castle? And so patents, that's an example of it, right? Something called network effect, where like the more people you get, right, the bigger it becomes. So Facebook is an excellent example of that. Uber, fantastic example of that, right? Like, as you build more riders, there are more, drivers that want to service them, and vice versa. So, but you need to have, a number that makes sense on both sides of the equation. If you have too many drivers and not enough riders, the drivers will quit. If you don't have enough drivers and you have too many riders, the riders will go to a different service because they can't get a ride. It'll take 30 minutes to, have the Uber show up at your doorstep. And so, as you're thinking through this, like, you're like, hey, I've got this great idea, right? Those are some things to consider. What is your pain point? You're taking people from point A to point B. What is your solution? You have to do that even if you're starting a business. It could be a brick and mortar business, right? Let's say you're a dentist. Your pain point is that people need clean teeth and they have cavities, right? You're going to take them to point B, which is a clean dental history and, teeth functioning the way they're supposed to. And your solution is your dental practice. This is true for every single business. And so as you think through that, these are some of the questions that you might ask if you've ever thought about getting into venture capitalism as a founder. And naturally, other founders are building businesses where they might want your advice. And so an advisory role is also, an opportunity to get into this space as well. So, Mike, super excited, right?
Yeah, that's great.
We mentioned this at the beginning of the show, but moneymeetsmedicine.com is live. It is its own website now, and have been building that, kind of behind the scenes. Super excited about it. So one of the things that people can get from that is not only the location of like the YouTube channel and podcast episodes. I'm be writing a blog post that if you prefer consuming content in written form, for each episode, I'll be writing an accompanying blog post. You can find that there, but you can also download the second edition of the Physician Philosopher's Guide to Personal Finance. So, brand new book, tons of detail in there, tons of content. I got 3, student loan chapters because student loans have become infinitely complicated. Written by my buddy David Flynn. So he's a certified student loan professional. And so you can actually just go snag a free copy. There's a PDF copy. You can also download the ebook copy and then just put that on your Kindle, read it on there. And this is the year, Mike, that you and I want to give back in terms of just financial literacy,
Sure.
right?
Right.
No cost. Go to the YouTube channel, get financial literacy lectures, listen to the podcast, read the blog, get the book downloaded to your email.
The book, obviously I've read the book. I was part of the first one, right straight to the point. Investing is not hard. If you just get a base understanding of the process, what you need. And I think that's one thing that the content on Money Meet Medicine and what you've built here certainly provides your listeners. And I'm super excited to bring on the disability insurance, to secure all that financial wellness, but do it in the right way. Do it, client first, and just always being available and having an understanding for the clients because of their schedules. Yeah. I've been there. I know what it's like. They probably go a week at a time without even seeing their spouse. The last thing they want to do is have a phone call with me.
Yep.
And so I get it. There's a sense of compassion that I have for my clients, but everything is always client first.
Yep. And so if you want to get a quote for own occupation disability insurance, and you want to talk to Mike, get more information, we can review your policy. We can check in to see if there's a GSI at your program. If you're in training, we can talk to you about, what the risks are, for applying for one disability policy versus the other. If you don't know what a GSI versus a fully underwritten policy is, definitely a reason to go talk to Mike.
Shoot me an email.
Yep. And so you can email Mike at michael@moneymeetsmedicine.com, or if you go to the site, there's actually a form you can fill out to get a disability insurance quote specifically for you.
Right.
So all of these things on moneymeetsmedicine.com. Super, super excited about that. The financial literacy, the own occupation disability insurance we can help docs with, bringing you and Justin on for 2024 to let money officially meet medicine again.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be an amazing year, and Happy New Year to everyone listening. I know the new year just passed. Hopefully you made some New Year's resolution goals. And we can't wait to see you in the next show.